I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how this gets spun.
Right.
There's no way in hell it's not connected to A.J. Brown tearing up the team that traded him, presumably on the recommendation of Jon Robinson, because Mike Vrabel's movements were a message to the world. This ain't my call, Chris.
100%. Well, and we had some sound bites and Mike Vrabel quotes leading up. That right? Am I wrong here? 10 days. I will never trade AJ Brown as long as I'm
here.
Right. Exactly right. He I think embodies everything that Mike Vrabel wants to his football team to be. That's where I think it probably hurt him as well. We know he's got big time talent, and like we were talking about, the formula of what he adds there was perfect. Run the ball, smash mouth. Oh, you're creeping up to the line of scrimmage. You're playing man to man, just like you see the Eagles do. Oh, boom, we're gonna throw a deep shot down the field, covered or not. You'll probably get the football, and you'll probably catch it and make a big play. And then play defense behind it. So they had something there. And then he works hard. He's physical. Out of the top tier receivers in football, he's not diva-ish that we see it from time to time. He's kind of workman-like that way. Has leadership skills. So yeah, Mike, I'm with you. And I think we both know too that trade led to friction for a little while. There was disappointment. I don't know how intense it got, but I do know from enough people in the league that Vrabel was not happy about that. There was more than just that twitch in the neck and that walk through the office there before he felt better. It took a little while. And yes.
Well,
I don't even know.
Go ahead. The whole process, and we said it at the time, and we've been saying it ever since. The notion is that when you draft players, it's a bunch of scratch-off lottery tickets.
Yeah.
And you're just looking for winners. And you don't really know who the winners are going to be. So when you get one, now, the problem is it's a bizarro lottery because if you get a winner, you've got to pay.
Right.
You don't get a bunch of money. You got to give a bunch of money to keep this great player. So you get to year 4. He wasn't even a free agent or franchise tag like Davante Adams. He still had a year left under contract. That's when you pay him.
Yeah.
But no, they traded him in for another lottery ticket. And, we know the way general managers think and the way they view the unscratched lottery ticket. Each one can be a Hall of Famer. So, hey, we got A.J. Brown in round 2.
Yeah, I got confidence. Right. I can do this again.
We've upgraded around, and we're going to replace him with Treylon Burks. And, hey, Burks has come on lately, but just pay the guy you have.
Right.
Keep the guy you have. And I think part of it is you've got some general managers, Chris, that are viewing receivers like running backs. I can find one anywhere. And there are a bunch of great receivers now. There are. But there are only a few special ones. There are still more special receivers than there are special running backs.
Right.
So when you have a special receiver, you don't trade him in for the hope that you're going to get the rough edge of the quarter and you're going to, special receiver. Oh, I got a special receiver. Oh, is there a third one? Hey, special receiver. You can't. Why? Keep the one you have. And that's why Mike Vrabel was saying all that stuff. And Mike Vrabel was proven right by what the Titans experienced, the ass-kicking they took in Philadelphia, thanks in large part to the guy that they traded away for a new lottery ticket.
Right.
And it's all, if the Titans, why not wait till the end of the season? Now, I know why you don't wait. If you're going to have a new GM, you may as well do it now because you got to plan for free agent, you got to plan for the draft. This is not an ideal time to do it, but it's far less ideal to do it when the regular season or your postseason run ends because then you're really up against it. So it does make sense.
Right.
But to do it 2 freaking days after that game, of course you're sending a message. Of course you are.
It certainly seems that way. I think there's a few things to hit on here. One, you're right. There are good receivers everywhere, and we're seeing them coming out in the draft. But special ones don't grow on trees. And A.J. Brown is, Mike, and please push back if you think I'm wrong. He's in the elite class of wide receivers in football. Hey, we could all, we know Tyreek and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, the Debo Samuel, A.J. Brown. I mean, right off the top of my head, Stephon Diggs we're probably going to throw in that conversation. And it's those 5 or 6 right away that I think just pop to your head. Devontae Adams, excuse me, that go right into your brain where you start to go, wait, those are the special ones. And I don't think anybody that follows football, would disagree with that's kind of the group of the elite of the elite there. I'm probably missing 1 or 2, and no disrespect. I'm just going off the top of my head here. But, yeah, I think that's where, your point's real. He's a mismatch nightmare, just like we saw last week. Titans got pretty good corners. Didn't really matter. Right? And then, I think you'd add on to the fact of he wasn't being selfish and trying to break the bank with the money in that situation. He was willing to kind of, hey, wait it out. I want to be here. He put himself out there emotionally and professionally about where he wanted to be and wanted to finish his career. So there's a lot of things that I think. But then, Mike, I mean, you're right. To happen just right after that butt kicking. And I got to say, when I'm watching film yesterday, and Jon Robinson's done a great job, but I almost sat there as I was watching, and this broke as I was watching this game. I was just going, man, yeah, A.J. Brown, did that play into it? And then what conversation spawned off of that? Was there something else that went on where, like, Vrabel was like, wait, were you on the field today? Did you see that team? And did you look at our team? All I had to do was look at their team and knew they were better. And I just wonder if that, because it jumps out how much bigger and physical Philadelphia was compared to Tennessee, even on film. And I just wonder if some of those things wormholed into other conversations.
Well, and that's the other side of the coin here. Jon Robinson wasn't willing to pay A.J. Brown. Howie Roseman, who built this badass team in Philadelphia that is now 11-1, was willing to pay him and give up a first-round pick to get him. Not just give him what the Titans wouldn't, but give a first-round pick on top of it, which necessarily means, Chris, if A.J. Brown was already on the Eagles, they would have paid him more than what they did because there's value in that first-round pick. So that, coupled with the fact that the Eagles are the best team right now in the NFL, and that Roseman has made great decision after great decision after great decision. In this showdown of who did the right thing, Howie Roseman wins, Jon Robinson loses, and Jon Robinson is out. Couple of more points that I think are important.
Yeah, hit on them.
1, I first had an inkling that things weren't on the same page between Robinson and Vrabel after they traded for Julio Jones last year.
Right.
And I'm sure I've said it at some point on this show.
You said it a bunch, Mike. We talked about it a lot. So all the comments made, Jon Robinson will answer all the questions.
Vrabel, it happened in June.
Right.
Remember, the Falcons held him until June 1 to manage the cap hit, and then all of a sudden there's this big buildup, and they tried to get the word out at the draft. He's available June 1. They wanted to do a deal so they could trade him June 1, and all through May it's crickets, and then after June, here come the Titans. They did a deal for a 2 and a 4, if I recall correctly. Good chance I don't. And all it was in the aftermath of that deal was Jon Robinson talking here, Jon Robinson talking there, Jon Robinson talking here. Not a single time did Mike Vrabel open his mouth. You know why? Because he's back there.
Yeah, twitching his neck. He didn't love that one.
Why do I want this, all due respect, washed up receiver on my team? Why do I want this guy who can never practice and rarely play on my team? Is he going to magically change? Is he going to walk through the door and want a huge contract like he has multiple times for the Falcons? I don't need this. I don't want this. Don't give me this. Don't put this on me right now. So you think that maybe was a start of the beginning there? Is that what you're trying to say?
That
was the first
friction moment.
If you're looking for circumstantial evidence,
right,
that was the first piece of it. And it's always made me wonder, is there a power struggle between the two, and how does it resolve itself? Now, I never would have dreamed it would have resolved itself in Jon Robinson being fired 2 days after they got their ass kicked by the Eagles with the help of A.J. Brown. Maybe in hindsight we should have. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised by it. But I feel like there's been that tug of war, and that's not good. That's not healthy. That's dysfunctional. For everything they've done right, the fact that Vrabel and Robinson weren't on the same page is bad, regardless of who's right. And clearly ownership believes Vrabel is right. The mere fact that it existed is bad. It never should happen. The GM and the coach should always be on the same page. It makes it so much harder to have a successful football team if there's any reason to believe that the GM can get the coach fired if things aren't going well, or the coach can get the GM fired if things aren't going well. That's not good. And Chris, it may be that Mike Vrabel morphs into a Bill Belichick type figure in the aftermath of this, where we don't have these power struggles in the future because Vrabel is now the emperor of the football program, potentially in Tennessee.
I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, I think he's kind of showing that he's probably capable of doing that if he's got the right guy, to be the GM. I wouldn't be shocked. The guy that's the interim now, I mean, he's kind of a hot name last year. I'm blanking on his name off the top of my head. He's a guy that was, involved in some of the GM conversations last year of some of the job openings.
Ryan Cowden.
Exactly. Ryan Cowden, excuse me. Yeah, but I would think that there's a chance, Vrabel has total control. Got a guy like Ryan Cowden who, hey, I trust you. You could do the work, and then, bring me, here, all right, we've narrowed it down. Here's the top 10 free agents we think at this position. Now you start to go through it and kind of give us your feel or the final say here. But, still, all right, so I'm still shocked. I really am. I mean, I'm shocked, but I'm shocked from the standpoint of just what Tennessee has done since Jon Robinson's been there, what they've built. Where their team has been year after year. It's been a team that has not had to make huge splash free agency signings necessarily all the time or doing it. It's been built in a lot of ways the right way. You would think Vrabel would be happy with the team and how it was built that way. Physical, tough, hard-nosed. They've been a player in the AFC. You just put all that together, it's shocking. It really is. And then in the middle of a season where just 2 weeks ago, they were flirting with the number one seed in the AFC conversation here. And now they've lost 2 in a row and things are a little different. But I will say, even as weird as it is, if you're going to have a divorce or you're going to pick one, and I really like Jon Robinson, I respect him, I do, you keep Vrabel. Vrabel, I think we're in agreement here. For me, is got a specialness factor about him. I mean, I think he's one of the top coaches in football. When you just blend it all together as far as the team, how he can communicate with them, the toughness on the field, the attention to detail, right? How he manages games and situations, it's top-notch. That to me is where, if there is an issue there and ownership has to step in and make a decision, you do keep Mike Vrabel because coaches like that do not grow on trees. And I think he's a pretty damn special one.
And they have done a lot of great things. They ended up with the number one seed last year after having an unprecedented revolving door of players. The most players ever on a roster at any given time throughout the season. It was up near 90. It was a bunch of guys that are just – and Jon Robinson is the one chiefly responsible for finding those
getting
guys.
the guys that replace them and do that. That's what
he had a role in this.
Right.
But, it just makes me wonder about everything. It makes me wonder about what Mike Vrabel really wants at quarterback.
100%. I thought of that too. Right.
A Jon Robinson guy that they're thinking about the future, and Vrabel's thinking about, I want Tannehill. Tannehill's still in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
We could keep Tannehill for 5 more years. What are we doing here? Why are we ambivalent about this guy just because there was one bad game?
Right.
So here's the other point, too. And let me just read a little from the statement from the owner of the team. Because at the end of the day, the owner's the one who makes these decisions. And the owner's going to rely upon whatever factor he or she wants to rely upon. Amy Adams Strunk said, since becoming controlling owner in 2015, my goal has been to raise the standard for what is expected in all facets of our organization. I believe we have made significant progress both on and off the field through investments in leadership, personnel, and new ideas. This progress includes the core of our business, the football team itself, which is regularly evaluated both by results, wins and losses, and team construction, roster building. I'm proud of what we have accomplished in my 8 seasons of ownership, but I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met. Now, team construction, roster building, a.k.a. A.J. Brown. Wins and losses, a.k.a. we just got our asses kicked by a better football team that they've built in the way that Mike Vrabel maybe has been telling us behind the scenes we should be building our team. But, Chris, when I read this, this is one of the realities that you must face when you are the coach or the GM of a team that is just knocking on the door. You can only knock on the door so long before you kick it in, because you run the risk of ownership eventually saying, I need somebody who's going to kick it in.
Right.
I'm sick of all this knocking.
Yeah, I'm sick of getting
all
close.
We're doing is knocking,
Yeah.
knocking. Come on, let's go. We are on the brink. The people we have can't kick in the door. Let's go find somebody to kick in the door. And I don't need to name names. I don't need to name teams. We know the teams that are out there that have just been doing this, and the time's coming to kick the frickin' door in. So that's why maybe in one city in Western New York, there goes not naming names, there are some nervous people about how this season goes, because you never know what ownership's going to do. That's the good and the bad. We talk about the Packers all the time. There isn't one person who can roll out of bed on any given day and say someone needs to go. In Tennessee, there is. And Tuesday morning, Amy Adams Strunk rolled out of bed and decided it's time for someone to go. Or she, after sleeping on it, reaffirmed the decision she had made the night before. That's the value and also the risk of having one person in charge of a team.
Yeah, it is. But it you know, I have a hard time thinking that this was something that just came out of the blue, right, on a Monday after the game against Philadelphia. I would like to think, or I would think, just from experience of being around the NFL, you know, most of my life and being involved in it for a little while myself, and just that this was something that was kind of ruminating, that there was conversations here, you know, that had taken place already, and then that Sunday was just the tipping point. And that's where, yeah, I question a lot of things, Mike, now. You know, you start to think about the moves that were made, and you go, oh, wait, you know, okay, not only did they trade A.J. Brown, but then they brought in Robert Woods to kind of replace him too. That hasn't worked. That wasn't good. He's off an ACL injury. They gave Bud Dupree a ton of money to rush the passer, right? What did he come off of? An ACL injury, right, when he got the contract. When I heard this, I just started thinking of all the different things that maybe were questionable. And of course, their offensive line is not as good as it was a few years ago when they were in the AFC Championship. You know, they've lost some players there. Jack Conklin, they let him go to Cleveland, and he went there and was one of the best right tackles in football for a little while. So, yeah, it makes you just wonder, you know, was this a bunch of things? Is it a total, you know, just butting of heads and philosophies? And, yeah, I just have a hard time thinking that this was not an issue behind the scenes already, and that Sunday just blew it up and brought it to the forefront here. And it was like, okay, owner, okay, Mike Vrabel, all right, Jon Robinson, you know, and that's where we are. But I'm still shocked that it came to this at this point of the year. I am.
Yeah, look, it was just a real stunner with 5 weeks left in the regular season. The Titans undoubtedly winning the AFC South. Now, the problem with what has happened the past couple of weeks, and we've talked about this in recent days, you now put yourself in position where you're going to be the 4 seed, which means whoever the best non-division winner is in the conference is coming to see you in the wild card round. What a difference from being the 1 seed and getting that week off. Not that it made a difference last year because they lost to the Bengals.
No, and right now they're going to have to see the Bengals again.
Whoever that oh boy, yeah, I think that the Bengals are going to end up winning that division, though, now that even though the Bengals have the much tougher schedule, but the Ravens don't have Lamar Jackson week to week. But it's going to be the Bengals or the Ravens or the Dolphins, possibly the Jets, but it's going to be a good team. It's going to come to town.
No question.
And hey, look, it's not like the 2 or the 3 seed is going to have a cupcake when you consider those wild cards, but still, you want to be as high as you can. And when you had that vibe that, you know what, just like last year, while the Bills and the Chiefs and the Bengals kind of battle it out, we just kind of slip up on the inside rail and take the 1 seed. It felt like they were going to pull that off, especially after they beat the Packers. And now it just doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's a little off. They ran into a buzzsaw, And they've played some good football teams here and played the best team in football, I think without question right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. And they got taught a lesson there, and it was pretty apparent that, yes, they're not in the same class as Philadelphia sitting here in Week 13 of the NFL. Can they improve on some things here late in the season? Sure. If they played again, could they upset them? Yeah, but it's going to take some miraculous things. They're not in the same class. But yeah, I do feel for Jon Robinson. I feel for him too, in the fact of just that, GMs usually, he did a good job, and they usually don't get a second chance. That's what's weird about being a GM too. And here's one case where you go, well, here's a guy that did a lot of good, and it sounds like it's just a butting of heads here, not necessarily a failing totally at the job to where you don't think about hiring him again. But man, it's a big time move for the Tennessee organization. I got to think too, Mike, to your point that Mike Vrabel full control over the roster is coming shortly behind this, or whoever the GM is going to know that that's the understanding between Vrabel and ownership, and that's the way it's going to be. And I could see that happening.
Well, and I think that's what ownership wants. I think that's what this message implies. Even if there's never a memo sent internally, Vrabel is now the king of that football operation, and he has earned it. And you could argue, and presumably someone did internally, that the team would be even better if Vrabel had just been the person in charge. That Vrabel has ascended to the point where he has shown a sufficient mastery of all things football, just like his friend and mentor Bill Belichick, that he should be the person who's involved. Instead of having this constant push and pull and back and forth, and Vrabel's not going to step away from a fight, an argument, a debate. He's always going to make his views known on everything.
Yeah, that's right.
And when you win, you can get away with that. When you win, your views become validated. When you lose, you're just, shouting into an empty room. When you win, you're the guy everybody listens to.
Yeah.
And clearly, someone in Tennessee is listening to Mike Vrabel, and now we see what the Titans do going forward without Jon Robinson there to make the decisions as to personnel for the balance of the season. We know that decisions will be made then. Who we keep in advance of free agency, who we pursue in free agency, who we draft, who we sign as undrafted free agents. I think that's all going to be Vrabel with the final say, either in writing or as a practical matter. He's going to be calling the shots.
I got no problem with that. I mean, listen, he's been in all those Super Bowl teams. He knows what a nose tackle should look like, an outside linebacker should look like. And Mike, like we talk about a lot of the times too, I think it's a guy that's been in the business enough too where it's not too much on his plate, right? To where, and also he's not a play caller. He's an overseer. I know he's involved in game planning, and he's a manager of the football game, I think, for both offense and defensive coordinator. But he's got two coordinators that I think he trusts to where, I do think he's a guy that certainly can kind of pull both off. And hey, blah, 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 I think we should do this. I think we should do that. Oh, let me go in here and wait, there's some guys on the street that I got to look at to maybe we got to sign at right tackle here. Let me look at them real quick. Oh, hey, let me get out of the meeting. Hey, guys, I don't like that defense adjustment, this, blah, blah, blah. He seems like he's perfectly capable of doing all that stuff.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.